Hey, hey, hey. Time for the Out of This World story from rSpace. If there's one universal truth in life, it's this. If you didn't do anything wrong, you shouldn't have anything to hide. Today on rSpace, drunken conversations have a nasty habit of dragging these hidden skeletons into light. Cheating wife said she did it for us. I left her and made sure she lost her friends too. My wife, 25 female, and I, 27 male, recently got married, only 8 months ago. It's embarrassing to say that because of how catastrophically things turned out. Whose marriage implodes after only 8 months? It's not even my fault, but I still feel like I completely failed somehow. We dated for 3 years and were engaged for 1 year before we finally got married. We never had any issues, we never broke up, and we didn't go on any breaks. We let each other know that we were both interested in committing to a long-term relationship right from the beginning. It always felt like we were in it for the long haul. That's why I was so surprised when she told me that she had doubts about our relationship. It came out when the two of us were having a quiet night in, enjoying some wine. She's always been a lightweight. She'd start slurring her words in no time, and if we didn't take care, she'd end the night with her head in a toilet bowl. She's always a chatty drunk. While we were having a light heart-to-heart in the way only two wasted people can, she said something that sobered me up in a moment. She admitted that she hadn't been sure that she wanted to marry me. That surprised me enough to completely kill my buzz. I asked her what she meant. She stumbled over her words and it took her a while to get her point across, but she got it out in the end. She said she'd started having second thoughts in the weeks leading up to our marriage. That was news to me. She'd always seemed so confident that getting married was the right choice. She was even the one who pushed for us to get married so soon after we got engaged. She said we were both sure of each other, so there was no point in waiting. But that wasn't all. She confessed that there was something she really wanted to say, but she knew she wasn't supposed to tell me. Of course, that got me curious, and I tried to get her to open up. I probably should have let it go. I should have told her that she was drunk, and we could talk about it in the morning when she was sober. But I was worried. She just told me that she had doubts before we got married, and now she was telling me that she had a secret. Whose mind wouldn't immediately jump to the worst? So I pushed. Maybe that was the wrong thing to do, but I needed to know what it was. She was reluctant at first, but she eventually asked me to promise that I wouldn't be mad. I didn't promise. I couldn't guarantee that I wasn't going to get mad because I was starting to suspect that her secret was really bad. So I stared at her, waiting, fearing the worst. And finally, she admitted that she'd slept with someone else a few weeks before the wedding. I had to stop and think for a minute to make sure I actually heard her right. My head was still a little fuzzy, and it took me a few seconds to make sure. When I realized I heard her right, I felt my stomach drop. The mood of the entire evening flipped around in an instant. Even in her inebriated state, she could tell that I was upset and immediately started trying to calm me down. She moved closer and started trying to stroke my arm and chest to console me. I pulled away from her and told her to explain herself. She looked confused at first, but then she giggled and tried to wave it off. She said it wasn't a big deal because she only slept with him once. She even claimed she had a good reason for it. I didn't see how that was possible, but I waited for her to explain. She was still pretty wasted, and she had some trouble getting her words out smoothly. I stayed patient, letting her get through everything at her own pace. I remained calm on the outside, but inside I was angry and confused. I didn't know whether to believe her, and I was hoping that something in her explanation would make this whole thing make sense. I knew I was in denial, but I still heard her out. I'd listen first and then pick her story apart later. She said she'd started panicking in the weeks leading up to the wedding. She felt like she was giving up her freedom forever, and her friends were telling her that she needed to be completely sure. So, how did she make sure? Those same friends told her to explore what she was giving up, and by explore, they meant go out and sleep with some random guy. I was silent for a while, and she tried to justify herself again. She said her friends told her that my friends had probably already told me to do the same thing. I scoffed. My friends had joked that they'd beat me up if I hurt her, because they liked her so much. I felt like everything I knew about her was a lie. She saw the look on my face and started crying. That loud, ugly, drunk crying. She said she didn't mean to hurt me and that she did it for us. She needed to be sure, and she'd felt so bad about that night that she knew I was the one. It made her certain that she wanted to marry me. I didn't know how to respond at that level of delusion. She cheated on me, and she did that for both of us? She needed to sleep with another man so she could be sure that she actually wanted to marry me? It was insanity. The worst part was that it seemed to make sense to her. I mean, obviously she was drunk, but I didn't think she was just inventing this justification on the spot. That was what she really believed, even when she was sober. The alcohol was just making her brave enough to say it out loud. But she wasn't done. She told me that she didn't enjoy it, and that she felt disgusted after and cried the whole night. But instead of coming clean before the wedding, she'd kept it to herself. If she really regretted it, she would have told me and given me the chance to decide if I wanted to go through with it. Instead, she'd let me stand at the altar like a fool. I'd put my heart into my vows and meant every word of them. Meanwhile, she'd been hiding the fact that she'd already broken them. I asked her who it was, and she said she didn't know. One of her friends had introduced him to her. She never saw him again afterwards. Somehow that made it worse. Her friends had pushed her to cheat on me and then pimped her out to some guy. It made me feel dirty to be married to a woman who held such low esteem for herself. I stood up just to get some distance from her, and she panicked. She tried to grab my hand, but I snatched it away. She begged me to sit back down and talk to her, but I couldn't. I told her that I needed some air, and I left to take a walk. She wasn't in any condition to try and follow me out, so she just stayed inside. I walked for half an hour, just thinking. I couldn't get her words out of my head. I did it for us. It was absurd. That was probably the most offensive part of the whole thing. She really thought she'd done nothing wrong. She was even trying to credit herself with saving our relationship somehow. She called and texted multiple times, but I ignored her. The texts were incomprehensible, and I'm sure the calls wouldn't have been any better. By the time I decided to head back home, she'd stopped trying to reach me. That turned out to be because she had fallen asleep. I was a little surprised that she managed to sleep after delivering that kind of news. Then I remembered that it was nothing new to her. She'd been sleeping like a baby for the past 8 months despite sitting on a secret like that. I didn't go to the bedroom. I couldn't sleep beside her after hearing all of this. I couldn't sleep at all. My mind was still racing. I tried to keep in mind the fact that she was drunk. She could have mixed up details or even completely made up the story. That seemed unlikely to me, though. I wanted to assume she was telling the truth, but I decided I would still hear her out in the morning when she was sober. The morning was awkward. At first, I expected her to forget the events of the night before, but when I saw her, she couldn't meet my eyes. That was how I could tell she remembered everything, or she at least remembered enough to know she was in trouble. I didn't expect her to bring it up. I could tell she was hoping that I wouldn't. Maybe she thought I'd forget, or maybe she was praying that I would decide she was just a rambling drunk. I disappointed her by announcing that we needed to have a discussion about the night before. Her back stiffened, but she didn't say anything. I asked her if she remembered what she said. Still no response from her. I told her I'd refresh her memory, and then I gave her a recap of everything she said. By the time I was done, she was still looking away from me. She stayed silent for a long time and finally admitted that she remembered most of it. I desperately wanted her to say it wasn't true, that she made up a story while she was drunk, or it was something that happened to her friend instead. But she didn't deny it, and I had no excuse to stay in denial. I faced the facts. She cheated on me. I asked her why she hadn't told me before the wedding. She said she knew I'd leave her, and by that point, she'd confirmed that I was the person she wanted to spend the rest of her life with. I said she didn't care about what I wanted. She cheated on me because she was scared, and then lied to my face. She didn't actually love me, she was just selfish. She was just about to start crying when she asked if I was going to leave her. I didn't hesitate to tell her I was done with her. The floodgates fell, and she started sobbing. I ignored all her attempts to make me change my mind. I didn't care if she'd only done it once or that she never planned to do it again. I didn't even care that she felt bad afterwards. If a grown woman could be pushed to do something by her friends, then how could I be sure they wouldn't talk her into something stupid again in the future? She didn't even think to discuss her fears with me before she ran off into someone else's bed. I packed a bag and left the house the same day. I knew I wouldn't forgive her, but I was worried that she might talk me into it somehow. I'm still conflicted right now. Did I overreact by ending things because of one incident? There's a part of me that thinks I should give this some time and talk to her again. But there's a louder part of me that knows that cheaters never change. Even if she says her friends talked her into it, she still wanted to do it herself on some level. If I take her back, it's only a matter of time before something like this happens again. I just need to hear some outside opinions to make sure I have my head on straight. Am I overreacting by ending my marriage over one instance of cheating? She tried to frame it as if sleeping with someone was some kind of love test. That's not how this works, and blaming it on her friends or her fear doesn't change the fact that she crossed a massive line. Then the way she confessed it, drunk, casual, like it was no big deal, tells you everything you need to know. If she truly regretted it, she wouldn't have waited until she was tipsy and comfortable to let it slip out. Update. I just wanted to thank everyone who reached out and left a comment after I shared my experience. I didn't expect to gain traction like this since my posts never get much attention, but reading through your own experiences helped me stay grounded and make the smart choice. I didn't go back to her. I never planned to, really. It sounded like I was talking myself into forgiving her, but the truth is I was just trying to make sure I wasn't acting emotionally. Once I had some time to calm down, I realized that what she did couldn't be forgiven, and seeing some commenter's story about how their wives went ahead to cheat again after being forgiven just confirmed that I was making the right choice. After I left home, she called nonstop. The first time I picked up, she begged me to come home and give her another chance to clear things up. I told her to tell me whatever she had to say on the phone, but she didn't have anything new to add. Just the same lousy excuse of doing it for us. She even claimed that our relationship was so strong because she'd made the hard decision to do what she did that night. I was so pissed off when I heard that I called her a delusional slut and ended the call. She kept calling after that, but I ignored her calls. I only answered her once to tell her to stop calling me and that I would use my call log to get her charged with harassment. That got her to stop. I was tired of hearing her try to justify herself. There was no real remorse in anything she said. It was all just excuses. Even worse, she was trying to make me feel like I should be thanking her for what she did. The silence continued until the day she was served divorce papers. She called me and I picked up because I thought it was important that we discuss what to expect in the future. Instead, there was just more pleading. She begged for one more chance to meet up and talk about things before we made a permanent decision. I told her that the only way I could meet her was in public, and if my lawyer came along. Otherwise, I had nothing to say to her. For some reason, that set her off. It was the first time she got angry since the whole thing started. She said I was treating her like a criminal and that she'd only made one mistake. She even said I couldn't hold it against her because I'd gotten the information out of her when she was drunk. I reminded her that she was the one who had volunteered the information. I never planned to pry any information out of her. My only crime was wanting a nice evening with my wife. She did everything she could to avoid signing. She tried to stall first, saying that she would sign if I agreed to try counseling first. I told her that marriage counseling was for people who were trying to make their relationship work. Ours was beyond that point. The only counseling I needed now was legal. She even got her parents to call me. They both expressed that their daughter had made a mistake and she was regretting it every single day. I told them that I didn't care how much regret she had. She'd made a clear decision to sleep with someone, and now I had the right to react to that however I wanted, and my decision was to start over without her. When her mom started to insist that I sit down with her daughter and talk to her, I got annoyed. I told her to save her demands for her cheating daughter. When she repeated that her daughter had just made a mistake, I asked her if she'd ever made a mistake like that. She was so offended that she ended the call. I knew I'd probably gone too far, but I didn't regret it. I just couldn't stand for her parents defending her and trying to make me feel like the bad guy. My wife called me after that to attack me for being rude to her mom. I didn't apologize, and I told her I didn't feel bad about it either. I warned her that I'd treat anyone that she had told to call me in the same way. She called me a few names and then ended the call. It worked out for me because it made her mad enough to actually consider the divorce, and she signed the papers that same day. The divorce was surprisingly simple. I expected it to be a long, drawn-out situation that would bankrupt me, but I really didn't lose that much. The legal fees weren't anything to sneeze at, but I feel like my lawyer was worth the money. After the divorce, I was ready to move on with my life, but I felt like I had some unfinished business. Though it was mostly her fault, my ex-wife wasn't the only one who'd ruined our marriage. Her friends were the ones who had pushed her into it. Even though things should have been over, I couldn't get them out of my mind. So I decided to return the favor and do a little interfering in their relationship, just like they did to mine. I knew the names of the 3 friends who had given her the brilliant advice. She told me on the same night that she'd confessed about her cheating. So I went on social media and found the accounts of each of their husbands, and the fiancé of the one who wasn't married yet. Once I found them, I sent them a short message. I wasn't friends with any of them, but we'd all met a couple of times. I said I was sure that they would all have heard about my divorce and explained that their significant others were partially responsible. Then I told them what my ex had said. I ended the message by saying that I didn't have any proof that their significant others were cheating, but it would be a good idea for all of them to take a closer look at them. I was surprised that they all took the message pretty well. None of them accused me of lying. They only asked if I was telling the truth, and I told them I was. I admitted that I didn't have any proof, but I urged them to do some digging themselves before doing anything else. And they did. One of them found out that his wife had slept with her ex a few years ago, and another found out that his fiancée was currently having an affair. The other one couldn't find any proof, but he wasn't ready to trust his wife either. He told me he was thinking of getting a PI to uncover anything she could have been hiding, and I said it was a good idea. After what the other guys had uncovered, it would be a miracle if she weren't cheating. In fact, it convinced me that my ex must have cheated more than once herself. My ex blew up the next time she called me. Her friends were all mad at her for ratting them out. She was in tears while she told me about how they'd called her jealous because their relationships were still strong while hers was dead, and that's why she'd sabotaged them. She tried to explain to them that I was the one who had reached out to their husbands, but they didn't care. It was her fault in the first place for telling me everything. They stopped talking to her after that, and now she was left with no friends. She whined about how she had no one. Her marriage was over, her friends had left her, and even her parents were starting to blame her for everything. When she was done sobbing, I just asked her if she was looking for sympathy from me, and I told her that she wouldn't find it. I stopped taking her calls. After that, I didn't need to talk to her anymore. I'd gotten all the closure I could. Knowing that I'd blown up the relationships that mattered to her after the way she treated our marriage was enough reward for me. I wasn't perfect during our short marriage, but I did my best, and I always owned up to my mistakes. But cheating and trying to paint that as some noble act, that's another level of messed up, and I'm glad I got away from that mess before it was too late. The fact that she kept insisting it was for both of you is, wow. That's not love. That's someone trying to justify being reckless because they were scared. And instead of facing it like an adult, she let her fear guide her into someone else's bed. Then had the audacity to call you unreasonable for not wanting to hug it out after. Not only that, but you didn't owe her friends a darn thing. They played an active role in wrecking your marriage. You shared what you knew. If they had nothing to hide, there'd be nothing to find. Have you ever been on the receiving end of a drunken confession? Share your stories with us in the comments below. And thank you for joining us today on rSpace. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. Until next time.